Hello, everyone. Welcome back to High Level Listening. Today's lesson is all about really testing your English skills with more advanced B2 and C1 level discussions. So today we're going to be discussing one of the biggest topics that affects every single one of us, and that's our health.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not just talking about healthy food or going to the gym. To really challenge your English listening skills and stretch your B2 and C1 vocabulary, we're looking at the bigger questions surrounding modern health that require much more advanced and precise words and phrases to describe. We'll also be discussing more difficult questions about health, like, is modern life making us less healthy? Why is it so difficult to build good habits? And what does being healthy actually mean in today's world?
Absolutely. And this is a great B2 and C1 discussion because it's something we all think about, but there aren't that many simple answers. You really can't just think of health as just about diet and exercise anymore. There's so many nuances and so many things to talk about. It also includes stress, sleep, technology, mobility, daily habits, and all of these choices that we make without even thinking about them. Now, before we get into today's discussion, if you are feeling like you understand a lot of what's going on in the discussion, but you really can't get the words out of your mouth, you might want to have a look at our B2 and C1 active discussion pack. This basically is designed to help you move from that passive listening into more active speaking. And we sort of help you through guiding you through opinion building exercises. We give you all the dictionaries for the advanced vocabulary. You can read the transcript of the entire thing. We've got MP3s and lots more exercises. And you can find the link in the description and a pinned comment below. All right, so let's start with our first question. Is modern life quietly making us unhealthy? Okay, so that's a big topic. That's an interesting question. And before we get into the thick of it, I mean, we have to start by recognizing that modern life has made our lives considerably more comfortable, not to mention longer. And in many ways, that's something worth appreciating for sure. Technology and healthcare have advanced dramatically, even just in the past 50 to 100 years. And reliable information about healthy living has never been more accessible. Whether we want to understand nutrition, sleep, mental health, or exercise, we can learn from experts within minutes at the click of a button. Compared with previous generations, like our parents and our parents' parents, we probably have a much better understanding of what actually contributes to a healthy lifestyle. So while it is far from perfect, modern lifestyles and advancements have certainly made us healthier than ever before, which is undeniably a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's no secret that the human lifespan or human life expectancy is longer than it's ever been. So our longevity and well-being has probably never been better. And I'm sure most of us would not want to go back to spending hours doing household chores by hand or traveling without modern transport or working at a job with intense physical labor that all harms your health. But I do think all this convenience comes with an interesting trade-off. The easier life becomes, the fewer reasons we have to move our bodies. We
Mm.
spend most of the day sitting at work, especially if you have a white collar job in an office. And then you might drive home. You might order dinner on an app instead of standing up and going to the kitchen. And when you have your food, you sit down on the sofa in front of the TV. So none of these choices may seem too unhealthy or too bad on their own, but together, all added up, the cumulative result is a lifestyle that's less active, much more sedentary than it used to be. And that's where some problems can start to begin.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes this discussion so interesting. Most people don't become unhealthy because of one single decision, right? It's usually the accumulation of lots of small choices that seem really, like you said, just insignificant in the moment. I want to sit down, big deal. I've had a long day at work. I'd like to sit down and eat my meal. I'd like to just order my food online, right? So most of it honestly is in the name of convenience, right? You stay up a little bit later than you intended. You skip a workout because you've had a long day. You order takeout because you're exhausted and you tell yourself, yeah, you'll get back on track tomorrow. I mean, I skipped going to the gym a couple of times this week because I had extra work to do, right? It's just wasn't in the cards for this week, right? So individually, none of those decisions feel particularly significant, but over weeks, months, and then all of a sudden years, they gradually become the new routine. And before you realize it, these routines have shaped our entire lifestyle.
Yeah, and I think that's another challenge that maybe people in the past didn't have to deal with as much, especially pre-social media and pre-smartphones. Because nowadays, we're constantly surrounded by temptation. Our phones compete for our attention every few minutes. Food is available through apps 24 hours a day, and entertainment never really ends. So if you're bored, if you're tired or stressed, there's always something around you offering instant comfort. So living healthily isn't just about making good decisions anymore. It's about resisting all of these little temptations every single day, all day. And that can be surprisingly exhausting. And companies have become very effective at persuading people to give in and treat themselves throughout the day instead of doing something healthy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's such a good point because it really isn't just a matter of, oh, I don't have the willpower, right? There's only so much you can do when it's your whole environment, your phone constantly sending those notifications. Unhealthy food is delicious and it's everywhere. And you're working long hours trying to make healthy choices when you can, but that requires so much more effort sometimes than people realize. That's why I think we should be careful before judging someone else's lifestyle. From the outside, it might look to one person like a lack of discipline, but in reality, that person might simply be trying to balance work, family responsibilities, financial pressure, and everything else life throws at them all at once.
Yeah, that's fair. At the same time, though, I think it's easy to blame modern life for all our problems, but ultimately, it is our responsibility. And there are millions of people who live busy lives and still find the time to exercise, to cook healthy meals, to get enough sleep, or just make time to go for a walk or do something active every day. Modern life certainly makes these choices more challenging, but it doesn't make them impossible. So at
Right.
some point, I think we all have to decide which habits we want to prioritize, even if that means making sacrifices somewhere else.
Right. So maybe I guess the real issue isn't whether modern life is healthy or unhealthy. It's whether we're using all that convenience to create a better life or whether we've become so comfortable that we've stopped doing some of the simple things our bodies still need every day.
Okay, so the second question we'll tackle in this discussion is motivation feels good, but is discipline what actually changes your life?
Oh, okay.
And we often hear people say, I'm just waiting until I feel motivated. Maybe they'll start
Oops.
exercising next Monday, or they'll eat better next month, or they'll finally fix their sleep routine after the holidays, at the beginning of the new year, for example, or around Christmas time. How many people just completely give up on doing all exercise and put it off until January when they'll feel motivated? And I understand that because motivation is exciting. It gives you this energy and optimism. It's a new year, a new week, a fresh start, a new me. But the problem is the motivation usually comes and then goes again. So
Mhm.
some mornings you wake up feeling super ready to change your life. And then other mornings you don't even want to leave the bed or open your eyes. So if your healthy habits depend entirely on this fleeting, unreliable motivation, then it can disappear just as quickly as it arrived.
Oh, now I feel you're specifically talking about me, but I won't take it personally, okay? Because man, it's hard, but I completely agree and I actually think that's one of the biggest myths about living a healthy lifestyle. We often imagine that healthy people wake up every morning feeling motivated, refreshed, and ready to make all the right choices, but I really don't think that's how it works. I think most of them have built routines that take a lot of the decision making out of the equation, right? Going for a walk after dinner, preparing tomorrow's lunch the night before, sticking to a consistent bedtime eventually becomes second nature rather than something you have to convince yourself to do, right? So I don't think discipline is always about trying harder. More often than not, it's about creating that routine that makes healthy choices feel almost automatic.
Mm. Yeah, I remember listening to a podcast from a famous athlete, and he says, yeah, he has no motivation to exercise. And he tricks his mind. He prepares his clothes the night before. So he has to wake up and everything's already ready. It takes the decision making out of it. And that's what helps him. And I think, yeah, it's an important distinction because people often picture discipline as something quite extreme. And they imagine someone waking up at 5 o'clock every morning, running 10 kilometers, then coming home and eating a perfect breakfast and never missing a workout. But for most people, discipline is much less dramatic than that. It's just choosing something small and consistent, even when you don't particularly feel like it. You do it anyway. And then I'd argue that these tiny habits, repeated hundreds of times, have a bigger impact than 1 week or 2 weeks of intense motivation followed by doing nothing.
I know we often overdo it right at the beginning and then we hurt ourselves or we're so sore that we definitely don't want to go back to the gym, right? And I think that's where a lot of people start to lose heart. We've kind of become so accustomed to getting immediate results in almost every other part of our lives. If you order something online, it often arrives the next day or even the same day. And if you want to learn something, the answer, just a few clicks away or just a few taps on your phone, right? But healthy habits don't always work that way. You might exercise consistently for a couple of weeks and barely notice any difference, or you've kind of tried to clean up your diet and you're still not feeling that much better right away. That's often when people start questioning whether all of that effort that they're putting in is actually worth it. But in reality, I mean, you're laying the foundation for these habits, and these benefits often don't become apparent until much later, right? I think it's something like it takes 6 to 8 weeks for you to notice a change and 4 months for other people to notice a change. So definitely need to put in the time and the effort consistently.
Yeah, I agree. I think all that being said, motivation still gives people the push they need to begin. I think very few people wake up one day with perfect discipline. And there's usually something that inspires them first. Maybe they want more energy, or they've received some difficult news from their doctor, or they've got a bit of back pain, or they reach a point where they're just tired of feeling unhealthy and stiff and sore every day. So that initial spark of motivation can be incredibly valuable. I think you just have to nurture it and turn it into something sustainable before it fades away.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to have one without the other. They really should be working with each other, right? Motivation gives you that initial push, but discipline is what keeps you on track once life inevitably gets in the way, right? And I think that's important because none of us live under these perfect circumstances. We all go through stressful periods. We travel, we get sick, we have demanding workloads, or suddenly we have some family responsibilities that definitely take priority over, eating well and going out and exercising, right? If we expect ourselves to be perfect and consistent through every single thing, we're probably setting ourselves up for disappointment, right? Sometimes that real discipline isn't about never slipping up. It's more about getting back into your routine right away instead of letting one difficult week turn into a difficult month, turning into a normal new routine.
Yeah, so it's not about constant motivation or perfect discipline. It's just consistency. And I think that's encouraging because it means you don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep coming back to the habits that matter most.
All right. So our final deeper question, and it is very general. What does it actually mean to you to be healthy? What does that mean? What does that look like? Right. And although it's a simple question, I do think it's the most thought-provoking part of today's discussion because underneath everything we've talked about, the convenience, the habits, motivation versus discipline, there is that bigger question. What does it mean? What does being healthy look like? For a long time, I think most people had a fairly narrow definition of health, right? If someone exercised regularly, they looked fit, they ate a balanced diet, we tend to assume that they were living a healthy lifestyle, that they are healthy. But I don't think that definition really reflects the complexity of modern life or modern science anymore. Someone can be in excellent physical condition while constantly dealing with stress, poor sleep, emotional exhaustion, or even burnout. And on the other hand, someone else who might not have this perfect physique might actually have more meaningful relationships. They might have a good work-life balance and just a genuine sense of well-being. So health is becoming a much more holistic idea, one that isn't measured solely by your weight, numbers on a scale, your BMI or your physical fitness, but by the overall quality. And I think this is the most important part, the sustainability of the life that we're able to lead.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that that era is over. It's been an interesting shift, even in the last sort of 10 or 20 years. And in terms of your overall health, your mental health has become a much bigger part of the conversation, and in many cases given equal priority to physical health as well. And I think there's definitely a positive change because people are more willing to talk about stress, anxiety, and burnout and emotional well-being than previous generations. I will say, though, that despite this new sensitivity around mental health, at the same time, I think there's something of an information overload with wellness and health nowadays. Because when I go on Instagram these days, every few months, there's suddenly an explosive, super important, and panic-inducing new scientific study that comes out and shows that a certain type of exercise or diet, food type, or a measurement is the magic key to longevity and health. And it can be overwhelming and practically impossible to actually integrate all of these new discoveries into your normal life because there's so many. Like now there's gut health, flexibility, your grip strength, step count. Are you doing 10,000 steps a day? Your bone density.
Oh, that's
fiber
a new one.
and protein intake is a big one too. That's everywhere. Apparently, according to the internet, you've now got to track and do and measure all of these things every single day to make your body truly healthy and happy. And at that point, it's almost more deflating than inspiring. It's just too much to handle. I see reels and reels of people doing different exercises that say, I have to do these or I'm going to die at 60. And if you miss one of them, you're letting your body down.
And you're letting
so
yourself
in some
down.
cases it generates more, it's more stressful the more you learn, the more stressful it becomes to learn what healthy is.
I know you'd think that more information would help solve problems, but that's not always the reality, right? And I think it is surprisingly easy for health to become another source of pressure rather than something that actually is supposed to just improve our quality of life. I mean, we've all grown up with it. People compare their weight, their workout routines, like you said, their step counts. Now it's like your sleep score. I have a friend who monitors her sleep, and she gets such bad sleep that she wakes up, looks at how bad her sleep is, and then gets even worse sleep for the rest of the night. It's like it's just compounding on top of each other, right? So we just get so focused on optimizing every aspect of our health. And we lose sight of why we're doing it in the first place. We're trying to lead a better life, right? If eating one slice of birthday cake leaves you feeling guilty for the rest of your week, or missing a single workout makes you feel as though you've completely fallen behind, then maybe that healthy habit has become sort of an unhealthy obsession, right? I think real well-being is probably less about chasing perfection and much more about building a lifestyle that's balanced, sustainable, and genuinely just I would just like to enjoy my life while I'm still here, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's why health looks different for different people and at different stages of their life. Like a university student and a parent with a child will all have completely different routines, responsibilities, and priorities. So I don't think there is one perfect lifestyle that everyone should copy. And even down to your sort of genetic makeup and how your body reacts to different foods and exercises. What works brilliantly for one person might just be ineffective or just unrealistic for someone else. So comparing your routine with somebody else's can be just as unhelpful as comparing your life on social media, which is another B2 C1 discussion we've had earlier on our channel, which you should watch.
Yeah, definitely. And no, it's true. And I think that's where our discussion finally comes full circle. We have more information about health than ever before, but ultimately, each of us has to decide what a healthy lifestyle looks like for our own circumstances. There is no single definition of what works for everybody.
So perhaps the main conclusion is being healthy isn't about chasing perfection. It's about building habits that are realistic, sustainable, and fit into your everyday life. And then looking after your body matters and looking after your mind matters as well. But finding the right balance between the two is probably what makes a healthy lifestyle that you can actually maintain over the long term. Okay, there we go. We'll leave it there. And now we'd love to hear what you think. Same questions. Do you think that modern life is making us healthier? Is discipline more important than motivation? And what does being healthy mean to you? Let us know in the comments. We read and reply to every single one. It's a great chance to try and use some of the phrases and expressions you heard in today's episode as well.
If you do want to get a list of all of those phrases and check out the transcript so that you can make your own informed opinions, check out our B2 and C1 active discussion pack. We'll be talking about debate questions. We've got opinion builders. We'll help you figure those questions out and then help you build your own answers. So you can find those in the link in the description and pinned in the comments below.
Yes, don't forget to like and subscribe to us here on High Level Listening, and we will see you for another episode very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.